So medicines have their role and have their place, but they're not really ideal. In other words, there's no FDA-approved medicine for any one of these disorders. You can't get a medicine that's approved for obsessive compulsive personality disorder or any of these others. So psychotherapy is really what it's all about. And what does that mean? What do you do in psychotherapy? First thing is getting to know what it is. So if somebody had obsessive compulsive personality disorder, maybe they never had heard of that, maybe they don't know anything about it, but going in and learning, geez, I guess I do have some of that stuff. Any of us can benefit from being more aware of our own issues, right? Of how other people see us and, how we interact with other people and whether it goes well or not well, what causes that? What's the good stuff about me? What's the stuff that isn't so good about me? And once you learn the stuff that's not so, that's, I don't want to say not so good, how do I phrase it? Not as functional maybe, the stuff that interferes a little bit more with your relationships. Once you learn that stuff, then you can sort of start to pay attention more to it. And then you'll start to figure out, here I did it again. I did the same thing. Like, I picked on the way he mowed the lawn again, just the way, I've been doing it over and over again. And he's told me before that kind of bothers him. I need to start, So the first step is learning that you have the problem, or you have the issue. And then the next step is trying to identify when is it becoming an issue and then stopping it, nipping it in the bud, so to speak. And so through psychotherapy, that's how that works, and that's how you do that. I want to caution you, it's not like, none of us are going to go into psychotherapy and come out a completely different person. No more than taking a medicine, you're going to be a different person. So, not that, hopefully your wife, if somebody with obsessive compulsive personality disorder goes into psychotherapy, and even if they realize all these issues, they're still going to be wired that way. I mean, that's just the way they're wired. You're wired a certain way, you're wired a certain way, we're all wired a certain way. There's nothing wrong or bad about that. What's sometimes a problem is if it interferes with our relationship with other people, then we got to learn about that, figure out some way to change it if we can, or at least work on it, And that's really what it's about. You're not going to take somebody who's very obsessive compulsive in their personality and make them into somebody who's very, doesn't care about, who's just very laid back all the time, You just can't, that. I mean, you guys know this from life experience, right? From your relationships and such. People can try really hard to change, and they'll change to some extent, and sometimes it's good enough. But other times, it just doesn't work. It's just not enough. So the relationship they're in, just doesn't work. But I don't know if that explains it very well, but that's, realistically, you just want to become more functional, and you're not probably going to become somebody you're not, somebody different. Any questions about that? About any of this stuff, personality disorders, treatment, any of that? Not so much. This being the last talk of the year, I came across some stuff that I wanted to just to real briefly mention and kind of, again, instill in you guys the importance of learning about this stuff, about the brain and about how your brain works and how it doesn't work. There was and also sort of the reason that I'm doing these talks, there was a survey by the American Psychiatric Association of about 1,000 American adults in March. And the idea was they're trying to figure out how much the people in the general American public know about their brains and about brain illnesses and psychiatric illnesses. And what they found was exactly what I've sort of found through experience, through treating folks and interacting with folks just in day-to-day life, is that folks really don't know a whole lot about it. And this is really the idea behind me doing this. I think we really need to learn more about our brains and how these things work and what causes us all to act and feel the way we do. And unfortunately, folks in this survey anyway, and I think it's pretty representative of people in America or I would guess, everywhere around the world, they don't really understand the warning signs, the causes of these things. They don't really understand when something is even an issue. They may say somebody kind of acts crazy or whatever, but that's about the extent of it. They don't really get much further than that. I'm kind of hoping that people will be able to start to say, well, they seem like they might have a little obsessive compulsive personality or something, or maybe they're depressed, that's why they're irritable all the time, or whatever. Instead of somebody, or somebody is narcissistic and goes off on you, and you're able to say, geez, that guy's awful narcissistic. And so you're able to put it back off on him and realize it's not me. I didn't do anything. It was him. He's got the issue. And then maybe that avoids a huge fight, or somebody getting hurt, because you're able to sort of shrug it off and say, yeah, geez, that guy's got issues. I remember Don talking about that. That's much better than getting into space and getting in a huge fight. So these are the ideas. This is the idea that I have behind doing this. But a couple things. I guess, are these things treatable? Absolutely, they're treatable. For instance, depression. We got about a 70 to 80% chance of successfully treating depression. When you look at heart disease or other chronic illnesses, but heart disease in particular, it's about 45 to 50% chance of, 45 to 50% of the time we can treat that with a favorable outcome. So it's, depression is very treatable, and even more so maybe than heart disease, which is something we all sort of think of as very treatable. The other thing that I think the American public didn't realize is just how common these things are. Most folks were saying, 10% or less of people have these in America have one or more of these brain illnesses. Well, really, the true figure is about 20% of folks. That's a lot of folks. That's a lot of people. 1/5 of the population of America has some type of brain illness. Not calling them brain illnesses, but I mean that would include things like personality disorders, which I don't know if you call it an illness or what, but it certainly interferes with function. And the other thing that I thought was still sort of sad is a third, or 33% of American adults still think that these things are like an emotional weakness or some fault, character fault of the person. And 29% thought that maybe old age, when somebody in an older age has these things, well, it's just old age, just because grandma's getting old, And that's not, we got to do better than that. We got to all realize that these things are true illnesses. There's not a weakness. It's not something somebody's doing wrong or not living right. Another one is, that you're not a good enough Christian or whatever religion you are. You're not following it close enough. So I'm just hoping that through these talks, that this stuff gets out, folks start to realize what these are, and that it's not that we're all. If you have a brain, basically, you can have some of these things, and so we need to have a little more compassion and understanding for other folks, common man, I guess. So that's pretty much it. I think next year, starting in September, we'll start again. We've covered a lot of the psychiatric stuff already. The only one I think that I haven't covered, unless other folks have ideas, is psychosis, schizophrenia, and delusional disorder, and some of the others. Those are kind of interesting. Those we need to talk about. And then after that, it's sort of open. I think I sort of thought about doing some neurologic things. I think I mentioned Parkinson's disease, maybe doing something on that. And I'd like to bring in some more guest speakers next year too, and get somebody else up here talking besides myself. But hopefully you guys will be able to come back next year, and I hope all you guys have a good summer. So thanks for coming tonight.